Imagine standing in the middle of a frozen field where the wind never stops. You have no heater, no electricity, and no down jacket from a mall. This was the daily reality for our ancestors during the last glacial maximum. Back then, the Earth was going through a massive transformation that changed everything. Most people think the whole world was a giant ice cube, but that is not quite right. On average, the planet was only about 6 degrees Celsius colder than today. That sounds like a small change, doesn't it? Just the difference between a light jacket and a sweater. But that average hides a terrifying reality. While the equator stayed relatively mild, the northern regions were a different story. In those high latitudes, temperatures plummeted by as much as 14 degrees Celsius. This is what scientists call polar amplification. It turned the top of the world into a brutal, unforgiving freezer. Yet, right in the middle of this frozen chaos, humans did something incredible. They weren't just surviving, they were thriving. They built cities of bone and wore clothes more advanced than we realized. But how did they find food when everything was buried in ice? How did they stay warm when wood for fire was almost impossible to find? Today, we are uncovering the secrets of the Mammoth bone architects. To understand this story, we have to look at the landscape. This was not a wasteland of empty snow. It was the Mammoth Steppe. Imagine a massive, dry grass highway stretching from Spain all the way to Canada. This was the most productive ecosystem on the planet at the time. This high-density grassland supported millions of large herbivores. It was an infinite resource of meat and materials if you were brave enough to take it. But living here meant facing winters that lasted for the majority of the year. You could not just pitch a leather tent and hope for the best. In modern-day Ukraine, at a site called Mezhyrich, archaeologists found something that changed our understanding of ancient engineering. They discovered sophisticated homes built entirely from mammoth bones. These were not just piles of skeletons thrown together. They were carefully designed, interlocked structures that could withstand the howling Arctic winds. One specific hut was composed of exactly 149 mammoth bones. The foundation alone used 95 massive jawbones to create a solid base. Imagine the strength required to move these pieces. These people were master architects, using the only building material they had in abundance. Recent research suggests these were more than just shelters. They might have been smokehouses used to preserve meat for the long, dark months ahead. At the site, they even found a piece of mammoth ivory with markings on it. Some experts believe this Mezhyrich map is a process chart for butchering. It shows how they organized their resources and stored their food. This was not primitive survival. It was a highly organized industrial operation. In Russia, at the Kostenki site, they found similar structures that are 25,000 years old. These were built using at least 60 different mammoths. This proves that bone architecture was a technology passed down through generations. It was a cultural legacy of engineering that lasted for thousands of years. Inside these bone houses, the hunters faced a constant battle with their own biology. Staying warm in a 14-degree temperature drop requires an immense amount of energy. Think about how hungry you get on a cold day. Now, imagine your body burning 50% more calories just to keep your heart beating. Modern military studies confirm that humans in deep cold need about 4,500 calories every single day. That is nearly double a normal intake. Luckily, a single adult mammoth provided roughly 500,000 calories. It was the ultimate jackpot for a hungry tribe of hunters. But there was a hidden danger in all that meat. If you only eat lean protein, your body starts to starve from the inside out. Scientists call this protein poisoning. To survive, these hunters needed massive amounts of animal fat to safely metabolize the protein they were eating. They became experts at extracting marrow from the deepest parts of the bone. They mixed fat with dried meat to create high-energy survival bars. This was their version of nature's refrigerator. They used the permafrost to keep their massive meat hauls from spoiling during the summer. Of course, food and shelter were only half of the battle. If you did not have the right clothes, you would be dead within hours of leaving the hut. At the Sunghir burial site, we found evidence of Paleolithic fashion that would rival modern winter gear. One man was buried with 13,000 ivory beads. These beads were not just jewelry. Their placement suggests they were sewn onto fitted trousers, shirts, and heavy parkas. This was high-performance gear. They used fine bone needles that were as sharp and effective as any steel needle you have in your house today. But the real secret weapon was something much simpler. Archaeologists believe this was the era when humans invented the first version of underwear. When you work hard in the cold, you sweat. If that sweat freezes against your skin, it can lead to rapid hypothermia and death. By creating a wicking inner layer, these ancient humans kept their skin dry. This tiny technological shift allowed them to hunt for hours in the snow. It is a reminder that big survival challenges are often solved by very small inventions. A needle and a piece of soft fur changed the course of history. While the adults were sewing and hunting, the community was also focused on the future. They were building the world's first information systems. We often look at cave paintings, like the ones in Lascaux, and think of them as art. But for the mammoth hunters, they were likely data transfers. These images acted as a visual database for the younger generation. They showed animal behaviors, migration patterns, and seasonal changes in the environment. In the flickering light of a fire, some of these paintings actually appear to move. It was the first cinematic experience used to teach survival skills. By superimposing images, they could show how a deer runs or how a mammoth reacts to a spear. They were downloading knowledge into the minds of their children. Every part of their lives was dedicated to overcoming the environment. They used every bone, every scrap of fat, and every wall of their caves. They even had music. Archaeologists found a mammoth skull decorated with red ochre dots that served as a ritual drum. Imagine drums echoing through a bone hut in the middle of a blizzard. It was how they kept the community together and spirits high. This resilience is the reason we are here today. Our ancestors did not just wait for the ice to melt. They conquered the frost. They turned a brutal climate shift into an era of incredible human achievement. They were the original masters of adaptation and engineering. Next time you feel a chill in the air, think of the Mezhyrich architects. Think of the families huddling in houses made of jawbones and tusks. They proved that with enough creativity, even the harshest winter can be turned into a home. We are the children of the frost and the bone. Thank you for watching The First Why as we explore the secrets of our past. If you enjoyed this journey into the Ice Age, be sure to subscribe. We'll keep uncovering the reasons behind our history. Stay curious and stay warm until the next chapter.